What's up guys, Rogue9 here, and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm here with Prodigio Pete in the Cave of Wisdom. Not only are the walls black, even the ceiling is black, as you can probably tell from the amazing lighting in this video. I think we're going to call these the nighttime vlogs.
Yeah.
So, why are we here with you today? We have some quite exciting information to share with you. I think a potentially massive game changer for Rainbow Six's future. First of all in the Pro League, and then later on accessible for everyone. Really great stuff. What has happened is that Alex Remy, the brand director for Rainbow Six Siege, has been giving briefings while at the Invitational, and we were quite lucky to be invited to one of those. And what we want to do today is go over with you what facts we know about the upcoming pick and ban system.
Okay, so you may have heard a little bit about the pick and ban system so far. As Rogue says, we were fortunate enough to attend a briefing given by Alex Remy, the brand director of Rainbow Six Siege, and we got a bit of details about how it will work. So firstly, it does work on a vote system. So when you go into a game, you and your team will be able to vote on a number of operators you would like to see excluded from the match. And that will include one attacker and one defender. And of course, the opposition team will also be voting for one attacker and one defender. And what that ultimately means is there will be 4 operators excluded from the entire match. Now, those 4 operators are excluded for everyone. So say you're on the defensive team and you think, right, we're going to ban Glaz, and we'll also ban Smoke, so that when we're playing on the attacking team, we don't have to deal with him. But then the other team ban 2 different operators. All 4 of the operators that are ultimately banned are banned for everyone, including the ones you ban for the other team. They're banned for you too.
Yeah, and I think, as you mentioned, the important thing to underline there is it's not just for one round, it is for the entire match. And then what happens? So after that, we get the reveal. So all 4 operators, the 2 attackers and 2 defenders, will be revealed. So you know which attackers you won't be able to choose, but also the opposition will know which you won't be able to choose, and the same goes for the defenders. After that, we go into the regular operator selection. So both teams will simply have each player individually choose from the operator pool that is left, minus the 2 that were banned. Now, after that is where normally the match would start. But here's an interesting difference that is also going to be coming.
Okay, so you will know exactly which operators have been picked by the other team. It will be revealed before you go into the match who all of the defenders are, or who all of the attackers are. As you know at the moment, for example, when you're attacking, you'll need to drone out the defenders and you'll be scanning them to reveal them to your team. Well, now you'll know exactly who they are before you even go into the match. Now you might wonder, what has that got to do with the pick and ban system? Well, the interesting thing is, once those operators are revealed, you get one chance to play basically what we're calling the Joker card. So you can pick all of your operators on your team, but one member of your team will be able to switch which operator they've chosen to potentially trick the enemy team. So let's say, for example, you picked a Glaz, the enemy team thinks you've picked a Glaz, then before you actually get into the match, there is one last opportunity for one player on your team to switch out their operator choice as a wild card, or as we call the Joker in the pack.
Yeah, and visually, if the way you can imagine it is, if you think about watching one of the Pro League matches, we as spectators at the moment, once both teams have selected their operators, we get a sort of a screen with 2 rows of the teams with every operator that's been picked shown to us as the spectators. Now, how that will work in future is that each player will be allowed to see that screen, so you will know all the attackers, you'll know all the defenders, but after that happens, each team can switch out one. Now, I think that is, well, all of this has massive strategic implications. Not just the last part, but even the first, the pick and ban in and of itself. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that, I think, starting out with the ban of 2 attackers, 2 defenders per team.
So the first and most important thing to talk about here that we've been discussing a lot since we had this briefing with Alex Remy is the mind games, and Alex touched on it himself. It's your thinking and double thinking. Are they picking operators only to trick you into thinking they're picking, I don't know, just say a Tachanka, and then they're going to switch them out? Or are you saving an operator in reserve so they think, oh, they haven't picked a Hibana, so they're not going to attack that specific objective. However, they use the wild card to put the Hibana in and therefore trick the defence into what their overall intention is in the game.
I think you've touched on a good point there. Once you're choosing your operators, you know they'll be revealed to your opponents, which means that they may come with a certain strategy in mind, or may sort of try to second guess your strategy to counter that, but then taking away maybe a key element of your lineup and then switching it out with someone else. It has those two factors. First of all, you're bringing in a secret operator that they don't know about, and second of all, you're dropping an operator which may have been a decoy, a red herring.
Correct, yeah, you can pick an operator and then drop them just to lead them to believe that you're going to be enacting some sort of strategy that you're not, or yeah, you can do it vice versa as well.
Really interesting, and I think that extends the element and the depth of the strategy for the game. At the moment, we have a lot of strategic gameplay. There's setting up different defenses, coming up with an operator makeup that can always tackle whichever defense you come up against when you're on the attacking side. All of that is already in there, but now we're taking it one layer deeper, extending that strategy out to the operator selection and really getting to sort of interact with the opposing team. Really interesting there. And I think what's maybe interesting as well to talk about, something that we have been briefed on, is how this will roll out.
Okay, so talking about how this will roll out, obviously to have this all dropped on you might sound kind of worrying. How is this going to pan out? Is it going to come straight into casual and ranked? It's going to go into the Pro League next season. So that's how it's going to be tested out. It's going to be the testing ground for this new strategy, this new function in the game. So number one, it's going to go into the Pro League. Number two, they're going to add it as an option for custom servers in the game at the moment. So if you're someone that likes to play a lot of custom games with your friends, then it's something you can test out there. If you're not someone that likes to do that, then it might be worth trying it out just so you can see how this will work in the game. And then the other thing is we're going to see it eventually coming onto the TTS, which is, you know, the testing ground for most of these new changes in the game, such as the recoil changes. So it does seem like a wise decision to give it a thorough testing with the wider community before pushing it into the casual and ranked game modes.
And I think it makes complete and utter sense to have it in custom game modes, first of all, because this is a strategic decision. Picking and banning the operators in the first round, that will happen via vote. So if you're only playing with 3 friends and you have 2 individual random guys with you, or even if you're solo queuing and everyone on the team ends up actually being a complete individual, you're not really communicating that well, I can see how the first part can still work, because every player puts down a vote, and in the end the ones that end up getting the most votes get picked. Now, what will happen if each of the 5 players picks a completely different one? That's not something that has been shared yet. I'm not sure that's something that's been decided on yet, because the initial rollout, as Pete mentioned, is not only the Pro League, but custom servers. And custom servers is where you normally have at least 10 people that you know, everyone connects together, everyone is communicating, and there you can sort of at least have that conversation and make a more informed choice. And that is not only for the bans, but I think especially important for the last stage, which is where you replace one of those operators. Because I imagine if you're just 5 random guys and you're maybe not even talking, or you're talking and they're not really responding to you, how do you pick which player switches, and how do you choose what they switch to? I think that is the one big hurdle that stops this idea from just going straight out to everyone in casual and ranked, and that's where custom servers allow that first. And I think that is a problem they'll have to tackle before they can put this into casual.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think TTS is where you're going to get the most value though, because so many. I don't feel a great deal of people play a lot of custom server matches. I guess a few more will go in to test it out, but at TTS, lots of people on PC do download the TTS, and I can see it getting a good thorough testing on there. Now, you hit on a good point. There are implications here for both. I'm going to say casual play, but by that I do mean ranked and casual, and then Pro League as well. So ranked and casual and Pro League, there are two different implications. Now, Rogue touched on a very important point. If you're solo queuing, it's going to be kind of difficult to be organised in choosing operators that you want to ban out and having some overall theme and strategy to that. However, for the Pro League level, I think this is going to be an extremely interesting dynamic. We were involved in a podcast recently with other YouTuber Get Flanked and Pengu from Team Penta, a Pro League player. And one of the things we discussed in that podcast was this idea of a ban phase for operators, whether that was on a season-by-season basis or during matches. And when you talk about the Pro League, we talk about metas. We talk about the Glaz meta, the Glaz Ying meta, a certain strategy that comes into place which is so powerful, all the teams do it for certain objectives on certain maps, and it becomes stale. However, no team is incentivized not to use those operators or that strategy because they're in the business of winning. If you want to win, you want to use the best strategy, whatever the meta is. Now, what this does, this gives the option to make the Pro League as a spectator sport much more interesting. I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, even if they don't manage to put this into casual and ranked where you get random players together, if they make it something that just applies to the Pro League, it's still a worthwhile change. It's going to add so much more interesting dynamics into Pro League matches, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what can happen there. And you mentioned the podcast we did a while ago. I think it was Pengu actually that pushed back against the idea, because his concern was, well, why don't you then just go ahead and, I don't know, ban Thermite and Thatcher and then go and close up all the walls? And I think the way Ubisoft have already solved that conundrum is quite effective, because the bans apply to either team. So if you ban something really silly and it's going to make something very challenging for your enemy team when they're attacking you, you're going to have to deal with that once you go on attack yourself. So that being said, yeah, whether or not this makes it into casual or ranked at any point in time, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing this used by the professionals. And I think, is there anything you would want to add to that?
I just think as a spectator sport and watching the Pro League, I think it is going to make it so much more interesting. The mind games that are going to go on when this comes in. We saw with the ban phase when that was introduced into the Pro League, quite some time ago, and they decided to make that public. That was very interesting for us, the spectators, to watch. This is taking it to another level, a ban phase, but actually for operators, and the implications there are very serious for both of the teams involved. But I think overall what it will end up doing is just spicing up the overall strategy, knowing that you can go in and say, we don't want to deal with a Glaz, or we don't want to deal with a Mirror. Very interesting indeed.
Yeah, and actually then, one last point that I have to wrap it up is something that several of the developers have been telling me specifically, or probably they've been telling everyone, but they also talked to me in conversation and mentioned this, is the idea, the overall idea that they have for Rainbow Six. This is an idea that was there from the beginning, and it's something that I find really interesting because I certainly wasn't aware of it. What the purpose behind Rainbow Six and its development is that it's supposed to be kind of a hybrid between a shooter like CSGO, where it's all about the gun skill, the individual player skill, but it is also supposed to have the strategic depth of a MOBA, of something like Dota, where you will have 100 characters all with interacting and overlapping abilities that becomes extremely complex but also extremely deep. And I think certainly Rainbow Six has been progressing towards that goal step by step, and in fact the overall goal that is really reiterated again and again is that Rainbow Six is supposed to end up with 100 operators in total. And when we reach 100 operators, each with their own gadgets, each with their own interactions and counters and sort of synergies with other operators, we're going to be on the level of a MOBA. No, George.
Alex Remy, it's very important, that point, actually, because Alex Remy said that this was something they had in mind. This is from what I recall him saying. But because we're now getting to the point where we have enough operators, we can do the ban phase, he basically said. You know, we didn't have enough operators in the past to consider doing it, but as the game is expanding, we're getting these new operators every season. They now feel there's enough operators in the base game, because of course we only started with 20, but there's enough now to have an operator ban phase. And he was quite clear during that briefing as well. The aim really is 100 operators, and another potential 7 years of support for the game.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because once you have enough operators with different abilities but maybe enough of a purposeful overlap, that's when a ban becomes possible. Because say you take out a Thermite, well, there's still a Hibana, and there's still the opportunity to use, I don't know, IQ shooting down from above if you're talking about a Consulate, maybe trying to open up that wall to the garage. There's still Buck who can go above and open the same thing. So now that we have this sort of wide selection of operators, there is enough variety to still allow a realistic chance of achieving a certain objective, even with a key player missing. But I think with that, thank you so much for joining us for this. It's been really interesting sort of thinking about this idea and what it all could mean and the exciting changes that this will bring, hopefully not just for the pros, but for all of us. And I think with that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Adios.